Hello again. A word about this cancer issue, which I've been sharing a few thoughts about. So, better news in the sense that now it seems that they can indeed operate on me. It was 50-50 for a while there because the question was whether they could or they couldn't, whether the damn thing had progressed too far, in which case, goodbye, William, or whether, whether it was still operable. Few symptoms with these particular tumors, but which is a blessing. But there you go. And the word is anyway that now that they tell me that there is a reasonable chance. So hooray! Now then, what was I going to say though? I was going to say a few other things about what helps, what doesn't help. And I kind of really didn't touch on prayer. Prayer helps a lot, the fact that people are praying for you. Not your own prayer. There's a big difference there. Because when you have a problem, it's much easier if others pray for you. You pray for yourself. It just focuses on the problem. You can get rather depressed and obsessive. I've found actually that applies to all problems in life. But when others pray for you, when others step up to the mark, it really does matter. Why does it matter? It matters primarily, to me anyway, first and foremost, because it's a gesture of love. The fact that people are praying for you is of itself a gesture of love that gives you a sense of, well, that you matter and that people care, and that sustains you in a difficult position. But the other thing actually is the issue of God. I mean, presumably God is moved by any appeal in regard to the mystery of human suffering. I mean, it is a mystery, isn't it? You look at our history, the terrible wars, the Holocausts, that sacrifice. The word Holocaust means sacrifice, but I was looking just the other day at a video of the First World War. What an atrocious business. The misery of it, the misery of what those men endured, incomprehensible suffering, and yet did God step in to stop the thing? But I still think prayer matters. I think the heart of God can be appealed to. Of course, God views things in a different way, doesn't he? He doesn't believe in death. For him, yes, nobody dies. They fall off their perch in this world, but then they go on through eternity. So God hasn't quite got the same perspective, hasn't quite got the same priorities that we have, unfortunately. Or fortunately, I suppose, if you're a believer in eternal life. But that means that it's difficult. Well, they always say it's very difficult to pray to stop somebody dying. But people do, and people have prayed for me, which is enormously sustaining in itself. What else are they going to say? I mean, but another reason, of course, that God presumably doesn't always interfere directly is that he cannot and should not interfere in the world in such a way that interferes with human free will. I mean, that's the whole purpose of life. So it's difficult, presumably, for God to interfere in situations of war where we are creating evil one against the other. Perhaps more easy to appeal to God in situations of ordinary human suffering. And one has to recognize, I guess, that there's a force of evil in the world, and sickness, sin, disease, and death is all part of the negative side of the balance. And in a perfect world, in an Eden, there wouldn't be sickness, sin, disease, and death. So I suspect that if I were there, I'd still be squabbling with the next door neighbour. I don't know that I'm given my human frailty, but still. So I told you my situation. You know it. I mean, I got a couple of tumours, and one is close to pancreas, and if they tell me now if all goes well, they can just whip out the tumours. But when they get in there, the thing is more severe, then they'll whip out a good bit more. So I won't put you off your suppers by describing the bits that they're going to chop out. But hopefully it won't be that bad. But whatever, my chances are reasonably solid now. Once this is all over. So, what was that? What was I going to say to you? Yeah, once this is all over and they replumb me, I have a good 90% chance of surviving for 5 years. So it's pretty positive. Yes, and just 60% chance of not even ever getting a recurrence of this damn thing. So I'm a lucky rabbit. But there are benefits to having a life-threatening illness. It certainly makes death easier to think about and to bear, the concept of death, because you're rehearsing it, aren't you, in your mind? And it changes your priorities forever. That's another issue, I think. Ali ibn Talib, did I say this last time? I'm not sure. Ali ibn Talib, the Muslim philosopher from the Middle Ages, used to say that you should live for this life as if you'll live forever, and live for the next life as if you'll die tomorrow. Well, that's okay for younger men and younger women, but crack on past 50, and I don't think you should live for this life as if you live forever. I certainly won't be. You should live for this life as if you'll die tomorrow, because you need to focus a little on the things that matter to you. Now, where are we? So, and yes, you of course, once you've been through this thing, you'll always have that little bit of awareness of death. I mean, you'll be walking close to the cliff edge, as it were, forever. It's okay. I mean, you're there, but that's fine. I was going to say, I'm just looking at a note here. I mean, I was thinking, you could be hit by a bus. It's one of these things, but you can enjoy and should enjoy the wisdom, power, and authority. I say wisdom. God knows I haven't got that much, but you do. Things shape differently with old age, or older age. I'm not quite ancient yet, but I'm cracking on. And you should enjoy that. In the full knowledge that the angel of death will come for you one day. I mean, the Orson Welles story about Samara. Of course, you know the story about the man from Samara. I'll repeat it, but it's an old story. I don't think it's originally from Orson Welles, but anyway, I'll repeat it because it's a story of Iraq, a place I know and love very much. and if you've heard it before, then forgive me. There was a servant walking in the market, and in Baghdad, in old Baghdad, there was a servant walking in the market. He saw the angel of death walking towards him and staring at him, and he was terrified. I mean, you would, wouldn't you? You'd be frightened. So he dashed home to his master, and he said, "Master, master, I'm so worried. I've just seen the angel of death in the market down the souk down in Baghdad. Let me take your fastest horse and ride to my own hometown in Samara, because it's frightened me. It really frightened me." And the guy was there shivering, and so the fellow's master said, "Sure, don't worry, don't panic. You've been a good servant. You take the fastest horse in the stable and crack on. Go on up to Samara. All will be well, and you don't need to worry." So the servant took the fastest horse and left Baghdad and rode like hell for Samara. And then the master was walking later in that same day, in the evening, in the cool of the evening, he was walking in the market, and blow me, he saw the angel of death. And he walked up to the angel of death, and he said, "What you doing, frightening my servant like that? That's really unkind and unnecessary." And the angel of death turned to the master and said, "Master, I really didn't mean to frighten your servant. The last thing I had in mind, I was just so surprised to see him, because I have an appointment tomorrow with him in Samara." So, there you go. Happens. Yeah. Life is like a river, somebody told me. Yes, it is, isn't it? And we live in this moment. Enjoy the moment. That's yes, isn't it? The alternative name of Christ is Emmanuel, means the river of God. All of life is like a river, yes, and we live at a moment, and we should cherish that moment. So that's what I wanted to say. I don't think there's anything else I had in mind to share with you. Things are better for me for the time, so as long as I keep thumping along, giving you these videos, you'll know that I haven't fallen off my perch. And thank you all for keeping an eye out. All the best.